Christmas Day is right around the corner, and Americans across the country are scrambling to finish up their last-minute shopping. The COVID-19 pandemic has made this holiday season different than any other in living memory. As the United States is in the midst of its largest spike to date, consumers are deciding to shop from the comfort of their homes to avoid the crowds. This is the latest of devastating blows to the brick-and-mortar retail industry, as the percentage of online retail sales has been steadily increasing for years, with the pandemic providing a tailwind for online giants like Amazon. Even with the global health crisis, holiday sales are expected to grow between 3.6 to 5.2% from 2019, according to the National Retail Federation, which results in total spending of over $750 billion. So, although less than 40% of Americans plan to have a large family gathering this year, it appears that not having to physically see your relatives won't be a good enough excuse to not buy them that ugly sweater they definitely did not want. If you still haven't found a gift for that special someone, maybe consider something that they will get a lot of use out of, like a hazmat suit. For years now, the amount Americans have been spending during the holiday season has been increasing. Since the global financial crisis, the average consumer has increased their spending from approximately $830 in 2010 to $1,050 in 2019. This year, the number is expected to be just under $1,000, the first decrease in a decade. It is good to know that the only things that can slow Santa down are coronaviruses and credit default swaps. Despite what is generally considered a sign of a strong underlying economy, the commercialization of the holiday season has caused many Americans to question if all this consumerism is really in the true spirit of Christmas. But how did we get here? How did a holiday that was originally a sparsely celebrated public festival turn into the largest spending event of the year? It is hard to know for sure, but a small-town kid from Nebraska named Joyce C. Hall played a major role in the commercialization of the holiday season. His company Hallmark would go on to help fuel the fire of the American retail boom and change the landscape of Christmas forever. Joyce J.C. Hall was born in David City, Nebraska in 1891. Born into a poor family, Hall and his brothers developed an entrepreneurial spirit to help their mother out with the bills. In 1905, the boys invested in $500 of postcards to sell to local store owners. The postcard industry was at its peak in the early 1900s, as Americans away from friends and family liked to use this new type of mail to let their loved ones know that they were thinking of them. As the postcard craze began to fizzle out towards the end of the decade, Hall and his brothers moved to Kansas City, Missouri in 1910, with little more than a couple boxes of postcards. 3 years later, the brothers were now operating a store that was not only selling postcards, but also greeting cards. This store eventually became the Hall's department store in Kansas City and would unfortunately burn down in 1915. But upon reopening a year later in 1916, Hall had purchased an engraving business to begin printing their own cards. This turned out to be an extremely prudent decision by Hall, as it helped their business grow exponentially. By 1928, Hall began marketing his cards under the Hallmark name, and the rest is history. Today, the company employs over 30,000 people and has annual revenues topping $4 billion, holding the lion's share of the 1.5 billion Christmas cards sold in the U.S. in 2010. Now, by no means did Hallmark invent the Christmas card. That credit is generally given to Sir Henry Cole, an Englishman that commissioned 1,000 cards in 1843 with the quote, "A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you." However, the gift giving, and more importantly the implied obligation of gift giving, can be linked to Hall and the Hallmark holidays he helped create. As the popularity of the Christmas card took off in the mid-20th century, the United States began transitioning towards the modern-day spending frenzy we have now. Christmas classics like Santa Claus Is Coming to Town and Jingle Bells were written in the 1930s, followed by the mega hits of the 40s and 50s by Bing Crosby. In 1933, Coca-Cola popularized the look of the modern-day Santa with his big white beard and rosy cheeks through their Christmas adverts that have continued to this day. Towards the latter half of the century, the term Black Friday became part of the cultural lexicon. In 1975, the New York Times reported about the annual shopping phenomenon occurring in Philadelphia, where retailers were consistently experiencing their largest sales of the year the day after Thanksgiving. Soon thereafter, this term was adopted by retailers nationally to advertise the start of their holiday sales. Today, Black Friday is one of the most important days of the year for a lot of early birds looking to get a good deal. Approximately 175 million Americans shopped during the post-Thanksgiving weekend in 2017, with 60 million of them doing their shopping exclusively online, spending an average of $335. As great as all this holiday shopping is for retailers, It has not gone without its critics that say this level of consumerism is against the Yuletide spirit. Among the biggest complaints from the Ebenezers is that it goes against the original intentions of Christmas, to remember Christ and spend time with family. According to a Pew Research Center poll, 69% of people say their favorite part of Christmas is spending time with family, and 33% say their least favorite is the over-the-top materialism. However, the shift to a more commercialized holiday really isn't all that surprising if you look at how drastically the culture has changed over the last 50 years. In 1970, more than 90% of the US population identified as Christian. Today, that number is less than 65%, dropping 10% from just 5 years ago. In that same Pew Research poll, they found that a third of the country views Christmas as simply a cultural holiday, not a religious one. If you are a deeply religious Christian, these trends may be frustrating to observe, but it is not necessarily a bad thing. As this country becomes more diverse every year, it is good to assimilate people through cultural celebrations that they may not have participated in otherwise due to religious reasons. So if you don't want Starbucks to cater your holiday party with their obnoxious seasonal lattes, no one is making you. At least not yet. Another issue, which is more serious, is that people feel the need to spend money they don't have.
Because of the implication.
In my opinion, this is the best argument against the commercialization of Christmas. Today, 70% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings, with 45% having none at all. Meanwhile, the average individual is somehow coming up with $1,000 during the holiday season to spend on gifts, food, and decorations. This is yet another example of financial bad decisions made by the American public, but like the solution for those who want to keep the holiday religiously focused, is to just do what you are comfortable with. As much as it may seem like it, your family is not going to stop talking to you because you didn't get them AirPods. Like we saw earlier, people just want to spend time together and get grandma drunk off the spike eggnog. There is even an argument that holiday shopping is an enormous deadweight loss for the US economy. This is highlighted in the book Scroogeonomics: Why You Shouldn't Buy Presents for the Holidays by economist Joel Waldfogel. Waldfogel argues that the price a buyer pays for gifts is significantly higher than what they are worth to the recipient. Waldfogel estimates that between 10 and 33% of the value of the gift is destroyed when it's given. When expanded to the total Christmas holiday projected spending of $750 billion this year, this results in a total potential destruction of up to $250 billion in value. A good way to visualize deadweight loss is to analyze the effect of minimum wage on the fast food labor market under modern microeconomic theory. Let's assume that the current average hourly wage of $9.05 is the equilibrium price in the fast food labor market. There are currently about 4.5 million people working in the fast food industry in the United States. Let's use $15 as the new price floor for minimum wage set by the federal government, as this seems to be where we are heading with the new administration. This now brings the demand and supply curve of labor out of equilibrium and theoretically results in the job loss of hundreds of thousands of Americans, as businesses cannot afford to pay as many workers at the new minimum wage. This is the same concept with gift giving when the buyer's perceived utility is higher than the recipient's true value. The demand curve tends to shift to the left in reality, and value is destroyed as the recipient does not value it as much as the purchaser paid for the gift, thus resulting in deadweight loss. That being said, some gifts are preferred more than others, and even some people, based on their relationships, are more efficient at gift giving than others. According to the Journal of Socioeconomics, the worst gift givers are girlfriends, and the best are actually your children. Your immediate family tends to be good at getting you what you want at the right price, but this decreases with extended family. The best gifts to get people seem to be travel and tickets to events, whereas the worst is buying people pets. So if you want to play it safe, cash looks to still be king, and whatever you do, do not buy your aunt a goldfish if you want to get that trip to Cabo next year. In conclusion, we can all say a big thank you to Hallmark for their help in the commercialization of American holidays. I really don't know what we'd do if we didn't have the classic Hallmark holidays like Boss's Day and Sweetest Day, whatever that is. Whether or not you feel the consumerism surrounding Christmas is an issue is up to you. It has definitely become a large part of the holiday in this country, and it does not look to be slowing down anytime soon. Although, I do believe there are more pressing issues facing this country like, the pandemic, West Coast being on fire for half the year, and the impending societal collapse that we need to deal with first before we can cancel Santa. But, to each their own. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully.